Welcome, friends. And let me start straight away directly to the point on the discussion of the direct taxes, that is your income tax. Okay. Now, friends, before I go ahead with the discussion, and that way it is not a very simple topic and not a very difficult topic also. It is easily manageable topic. But because this is a law that we are going to learn, you have to pay a little bit of more attention when it comes to the interpretation type of the situation. Otherwise, it's pretty simple and pretty manageable. Now, this particular material, which I have already given it to you, I want you guys to come to this particular page, and right now, friends, I'm just going to give you this what should I say, the basic introduction and basic understanding of the law. Now see, ultimately you have to imagine like that income tax which you pay as a taxpayer, or where someone pays as a taxpayer, this money goes to the pocket of the government. Okay, and from the government point of view, this particular money is income from the government point of view. Okay, so what you pay, you may say that, oh, this is my expense, you may say like that. Okay, I'm very general thing, but the same amount is a source of income, or it is a source of revenue to the government, and that is the reason the government is going to be very particular about every small little thing, like every small little calculation and the meaning, so that a least possible confusion has been created. So every small things have already been defined, and it is provided under the law. Let me introduce the basic definitions to you first of all. Okay, now see, hardcore basic definitions. First of all, I'm introducing two definitions to you. One is the definition of the word assessee, and other is the definition of the word person. Okay, now who is an assessee? Assessee is basically a common name. It is a common name which is given to every taxpayer under the law. Now, for example, if Mr. X has to pay the money, or Mr. Y has to pay, Mr. Z has to pay the money to the government. So from the lawmaker point of view, or from the administration point of view, they will not call everyone by their personal name. They will say he is an assessee. Okay, so he is basically one of the taxpayer. Or if it is a company, say it is a assessee, for example, a company, for example. Okay, so assessee is basically every person from whom any taxes to be recovered, that means any monies are payable, or any other procedures under the law which is ever required to be done. Okay, so assessee is basically a person from whom any monies has been payable under the act. Okay, now assessee includes every person, and who are the list of persons who are also defined under the law. Now a person is all these different types of person. Individual, like for example Mr. X, for example you yourself is going to be an individual. I myself is an individual, so I will say Mr. Kalpesh will come into this particular category of the person called as a Mr. X. Okay, Hindu undivided family, it is basically the Hindu family. Hindu family per se is also one of the taxable entity. It is an assessable entity, so it is one type of an entity which comes under the definition of the word person, a company or a corporate body. Okay, so like for example Reliance Industries. Okay, so this is a company, and this company will be one of the type of the person who will be assessable to tax. Every partnership firm, every association of person, so partnership firm, association of person, more than one person come together with the intention to do some business, or with the intention to earn some income. So it is basically some group of people who come together for the purpose of doing some business or earning some income. Local authority, like for example your Bombay Municipal Corporation. Okay, so that is a local authority. They are all different types of persons who comes under this particular category. Now just see the last one point, which is quite important. Every other or every artificial jurisdictional person, okay, which is not falling within any of the above categories, which is not falling in any of the above categories. In other words, if there is any such person who has income, who has to pay taxes to the government, but he is or that person is not coming in any of the category like individual, HUF, company, firm, etc. In that case, this is one general entry that you will have to pay tax. Okay, so you cannot have a situation where you will tell the government that I'm not what should I say, included in the meaning of the word person, so I will not pay taxes. This kind of very silly arguments cannot be made to the lawmakers. Okay, so every other artificial jurisdictional person, I'll give you one example. Okay, the example is, say for example, a charitable trust. A charitable trust. Okay, for example, if you go to the pilgrimage, you might see so many famous temple trusts in our country. Okay, those temple trusts, the religious trusts. Okay, now if you will see, they are practically not covered in any of the above categories. Okay, but still, if they have income, I'm not saying that they will have to pay tax, but if they have to pay the tax, in that case they will come in this category of every artificial jurisdictional person or jurisdictional person, whatever you want to say, not falling in any of the above categories. Is that absolutely clear? So the person definition includes every other person, even by the definition. Okay, then the next definition. Next two definition which I would bring it to your notice. One is the definition of the word assessment year and definition of the previous year. Okay, these two definition I would like to bring it to your notice. Now see, understand very basic. These are hardcore basics. Okay, now see Mr. X. Okay, so this Mr. X, he's got a income. Okay, so this Mr. X is a assessee. Okay, because assessee will only pay taxes under the law. This is how now general understanding. Okay, then this assessee is a person. Okay, if you go by the previous definition, he will come in this category. See, this category he will come individual because he is Mr. X. Okay, so he will be in the category of person, Mr. X, individual, like this. Okay, now he has to pay tax on income. Listen very carefully. Okay, tax on income, and this is the whole objective under the law. What is the intention of the law? Is to charge you some sort of a tax. That's the pure intention of the law. Okay, so this tax is something which we have to learn calculations, or rather we will call it as rates of taxes. Okay, that will be, of course, when I start giving you some further introduction, everything I will tell you. Okay, on income. So it is a tax on income because name of the act by itself is Income Tax Act. So it is a tax on income. Okay, now this income is also defined. The appropriate definition I will tell you in due course of time. Okay, now this income has to be for a period. Period means basically for a time. See, for example, you say that you have a salary income. So you get salary per month. Okay. So I will say that tax on income. Okay. Income is salary. But for how much period? Have you understood that? Okay. So law says that there will be a tax on income, and most of this particular income is taxable for the previous year. It is taxable for the previous year. So previous year is the year, logical thing I'm telling you, is the year in which you earn some income. Is that absolutely clear? Okay, now, so what is a previous year? A previous year means it is a year, okay, immediately preceding the assessment year. It is a previous year is the year which is immediately preceding the assessment year. Okay, and it is a financial year which starts from 1st day of April and it goes up to 31st of March. So every income, when I say by default, I have an income X amount. So by default, it is an income for the previous year. And previous year, by default, normal understanding is a period of 12 months. Okay, and that previous year starts from 1st day of April every year to 31st of March every year. Is that clear? So this is the year in which you actually earn the income. Okay, then the next definition is, what is the assessment year? Okay, the next definition is, what is the assessment year? Okay, so Assessment year is basically the 12 months time which is immediately after the previous year. Okay, so supposing if you say that my previous year is supposing 1/4/25, 2025, just illustrative things. Okay, 1/4/2025 to 31/3/26. This is going to be your previous year. Okay, this previous year can also be written as 25/26. Okay, in shortcut we can also write it as year 25/26. Okay, so 20/25/26, like this also you can write. Okay, this is your previous year. In short, we will write it as previous year. So this is the year during which you have actually got the income logically. Okay, now when you have got this particular income, the assessment of this particular income is to be done. Okay, that means the return you will have to file, procedural declarations you will have to make to the government, and all these things has to be done in the next year. Okay, so see, current period, supposing current month is the month of May, supposing. Okay, so in the month of May I'm going to job, I'm getting the salary, so that salary comes to my bank account and it is credited. Okay, now throughout the year I'm working, throughout the year I'm getting the income. However, the return filing, the assessment of that particular income, whether I have disclosing correct income or not to the government, all these things will be done in the subsequent year, which we call it as a assessment year. Okay, now assessment year is also a period of 12 months. So assessment year is also a period of 12 months. Okay, and which is logically after the previous year. Okay, so if your previous year is 25/26, okay, your assessment year is going to be 26/27. And the same thing, assessment is just 12 months period thereafter. So which means that it is a 1/4 to 31/3. I repeat, 1st April to 31st of March. That is again your assessment year. Okay, so what is the logical purpose of the assessment year is to do the assessment of the income which the assessee will submit to the government. Okay, now however, if you go into the very technical meaning of the definition, it is little bit other way around. Okay, now see what I told you that first is the previous year. What I told you is first is the previous year and the following year is the assessment year. But actually, as per the definition, it is I mean the same thing, but it is worded in a little bit opposite manner. Okay, now see, assessment year, now I'm telling you a little bit of a technical thing. Assessment year means a period of 12 months, okay, starting from 1st of April and ending with 31st of March, okay, of the next year of the previous year. Okay, so basically this is 1/4 to 31/3. Okay, and the previous year says that it is also 1st of April to 31st of March, which is immediately preceding the assessment year. So law says that previous year is before the assessment year. That's a little bit of a technical thing. Okay, so either you say that previous year is before the assessment year, or you say assessment year is after the previous year. One and the same. Okay, but the technical thing I'm just telling you, technically it is said that previous year is the year which is before the assessment year. I repeat, see, assessment year is 26/27, so previous year is going to be 25/26, and both the years starts from 1st of April and goes up to 31st of March. Okay, the next point is that normally the previous year, listen very carefully, normally the previous year is always the period of 365 days. That means it is entire year. Okay, so previous year is normally 1st April to 31st of March. Logically, I call it as a 365 days, or you can call it as a 12 months, whichever way. I mean full year. Okay, so that is a previous year, but there are some exceptions to it. I repeat, but there are some exceptions to that particular situation. Okay, now that particular exception is if there is a new business. Okay, if there is any business or a profession which is newly set up, a new business. Okay, now for example, you are a student right now, you don't have any business. Okay, or you don't have any other taxable source of income. For example, you are just the students. Now after 2-3 years, when you will qualify, then you will start your own business or you will start your own profession. Okay, and when you will start your business or a profession in a particular year, it may not be always the 1st of April. It may not be always the 1st of April. So normally a previous year is 1st April to 31st of March. This is normal situation. Okay. However, in the first year, when first time you started a business, you might not have started on 1st of April. Say for example, you have started on 1st of June. So your first previous year may be starting from 1st of June. It will always end with 31st of March. So it is not full 365 days. It is not full 365 days, but it will be some period which is lesser than 365 days. Okay. Now, what is the sense of this? The sense is when there is a new business or when there is a new profession which has been set up. So for the first year, it can have an incomplete year. However, your assessment year will of course be the same. So assessment year will always be a 12 months. So it will be 1/4 of the next year to 31st of March. So assessment year will be a full period of 12 months, but your previous year can be a shorter period in case of a newly set up business. Okay. In that case, the previous year shall be the period which will begin from the date of setting up of the business or the profession as the case may be. Okay, now let me tell you a practical meaning of this. Practical purpose, practical meaning of this, let me just tell you. Okay, and the practical thing is, once you have said that your previous year is 1st of June to 31st of March, all your incomes and expenses will be calculated only for 1st June to 31st of March for that particular previous year. So income for the previous year and expense for the previous year will have to be taken into account for the purpose of the assessment. Hardcore, very basic thing that you have to keep it in mind. And next year onwards, again, it will be a normal previous year. So basically, logically, this will be an exception only for the first previous year. Logically, okay? Because for subsequent previous years, we'll always start again from 1st of April and go up to 31st of March. Okay? Now, friends, let me tell you this one particular format of computation of income. Okay, now see, as you already know that we are learning income tax, which in routine course I will say it is a tax on income. Okay, so how is this particular income to be computed? That you got to just keep it in your back memory, which we call it as a heads of income. Okay, so this is one small little format of computation which you got to remember. Okay, and when we will solve a lot of questions, these things will become very, very clear. Okay, now see, in the computation, normally in the heading we will write what is the name of that particular assessee, whether that assessee is individual, HUF, like this we will write. What is the previous year we will write, because every calculation is to be done for the previous year. What is the assessment year that we will have to write. Then we have to write a status. Okay, now first of all, friends, let me tell you there is one simple term called as residential status. Okay, now every assessee, that means every person, will have some residential status. In fact, residential status by itself is one of the chapter. Okay, these residential status can be broadly a resident person or a non-resident person. I repeat, broadly the residential status can be resident or non-resident person. Okay, so whether you are resident or non-resident, that you will have to write. Okay, however, in some of the situations like your individuals or an HUFs, you can also have one extra status called as a not ordinarily resident. This not ordinarily resident status is possible as per the definition that I'll tell you in detail afterwards. Can be for either individual or it can be for an HUF. Okay, so whatever is the residential status, and the residential status again has to be calculated. There is one separate chapter that we have to learn for the calculation of the residential status, but I'll just give you a very simple example. The residential status basically depends on how many number of days that you stay in India for individual. Okay, so that is a different method for calculating residential status, individual, HUF, companies, etc. We will learn step by step, the whole separate chapter altogether. Now, for example, if you stayed all 365 days in India. Like for example, myself, I don't travel abroad. Okay. So logically, because all the time I stay in India, logically, I will become somebody like a resident. Okay. And supposing if there is someone who is never coming to India, for example, Mr. John, who is in America, who never come to India, so logically is going to become somebody like a non-resident. Okay. So the residential status, whether resident or non-resident, it will be very important. It will be very important in computation of the income. In computation of the income, and it will make a big difference in the tax liability calculation that we will learn it step by step. Okay. So right now, because right now I'm only giving you the introduction. Okay. So every assessee will have some residential status, and their residential status will be defined under the law. It will not be something like oral. It will be defined under the law that how your residential status will be determined, and accordingly you will get a residential status. Okay. Once you get the residential status, okay, then you have to calculate the income headwise. Okay. So you have heads of income. So you have broadly 5 heads of income: salaries, house property, business income, capital gains, and income from other sources. So every rupee that you earn in your pocket, you have to categorize under the heads of income. So each 5 heads of income is basically all separate chapters that we have to learn. You have to classify that your income comes under this particular, like for example, nature of income. If somebody is doing a business, we will call it as a business income. If somebody is an employed person, that means doing a job, then we will say that his income is like a salary income. So you have to categorize income in the heads of income. Okay. Then when you will take this particular total, you will get something called as a gross total income. Now remember these words very carefully. Gross total income. So it will be called as a gross income. Okay. From this income, you will get a deduction under chapter 6A. There is one chapter 6A deductions. I mean, we have to learn that particular chapter separately, but some specified deduction from the income, you will get it. So you have to reduce that particular figure. And after that, you will get something called as a total income. Okay, so when I said the tax on income, okay, this is something which we'll oftenly use. This tax on income, this income basically means this total income. This income is your income. And total income is basically your gross total income minus the deductions of chapter 6, say you get a total income. Okay, so remember this, don't confuse between the word gross total income and the total income. And I guess that you already got the difference between what is a gross total income and the total income. And on the total income, you have to calculate the tax liability. And this is basically one tax rate structure. Okay, I always call it as a tax structure or the tax rate structure for general understanding, which I will guide you in just some time to go. And you will get the amount of the tax liability out of this particular income. Okay, this is what you have to keep on imagining. Okay. Now, friends, one of the next thing which you have to remember is oftenly we will use the words something like, Indian income, foreign income, and something like that. Okay. So, as such, not specifically defined like this, but for our better understanding. Okay. What do you mean by an Indian income and what do you mean by a foreign income? Okay, Indian income and the foreign income. Okay, Indian income is those income. Listen very carefully. Indian income is those income which is either received in India, okay, or if it is deemed to have been received in India, if it is accrued in India, or if it is deemed to have been accrued in India. So received in India or a deemed receipt in India, accrued in India or deemed to be accrued in India. Okay, this type of income is called as a Indian incomes. I repeat, this type of income is called as Indian incomes. Let me give you one very simple example: receipt of income. Supposing if I pay you some money, okay, you got that particular money. Where did you get that money? Where are you standing at that point in time when I pay you the money? Supposing in India, in Mumbai. Okay, so you have received money in Mumbai, and Mumbai is inside India. So you have received money in India, like that. What do you mean by accrued? The place where you actually do some business or place where you actually render some services. Now, for example, if you are doing some business, which is a place where you are doing a business. So you will say that, sir, my shop is in, For example, Kolkata. So Kolkata is in India, and therefore it is income which is accrued in India. Okay, so receipt and accrual. Okay, now when it comes to the word deemed receipt or deemed accrual, they are basically some separate definitions under the law, which I will tell you in due course of time. Okay, so anything received in India always taxable in India. Anything accrued in India always taxable in India. And that is the reason you should know the Indian income. Okay, what is a foreign income? A foreign income is basically every income which is other than an Indian income, which means that it is neither received in India, it is neither accrued in India. Is that absolutely clear? Now, for example, if you say that this is India and this is a foreign country. Okay, so there is one gentleman called as Mr. F in the foreign country who is doing business in foreign country. He never come to India. He never take any money in India. He never do any transaction in India. So whatever income of Mr. F will be his foreign income. It will not be his Indian income. So oftenly, friends, I will use the words Indian income, foreign income. Okay, this is one word which I will oftenly use it in terms of the explanation. So hardcore basics introduction that I am giving it to you right now. Okay, now what is the real purpose of knowing this Indian income and foreign income? Why should we learn this particular point? That also you better remember. Okay, because Indian income is taxable for all the residential status. All the types of residential status, Indian income is taxable. So for example, if you say Mr. X, okay, supposing if he is a resident and ordinarily resident, so he is a resident person, that was supposing in shortcut I say, then Indian income will be taxable for him. Okay, because he is resident, and because he is resident, even the foreign incomes will be taxable for him. So what is taxable in India is Indian income also and foreign income also. So everything is taxable in India for resident person. But supposing if somebody is a non-resident person or a not ordinarily person, okay, for non-resident person, the foreign incomes are not taxable. So, for example, okay, see, for example, this is India, this is a foreign country. Okay, now in the foreign country, one Mr. F is doing a business. He never come to India. He never have any accrued income in India. He never have any receipt in India. So, this Mr. F is a non-resident, and he has got, say, for example, income of $10,000 in the foreign country. He is a non-resident. So these $10,000, okay, will not be taxable in India because he is a non-resident person and this is a foreign income. Is that clear? So a resident person is taxable for global income. That is your Indian income also. That is your foreign income also. A resident person. Is that clear? However, a non-resident person or a not ordinarily resident person, they will not be taxable for the foreign incomes. That means if this non-resident person has an Indian income will always be taxable in India. Okay, so in detail we will study all that which type of income is taxable in whose hands in detail. That we got to study, but this is what you have to remember. These are hardcore basic things. I'm just giving you overview of the entire things. Okay. Now there is one exception, and that particular exception is business controlled from India is taxable in India for not ordinarily resident. So if your residential status is a not ordinarily resident person, then business controlled from India is taxable in India. In detail also I will explain to you, but after some time. So remember this particular exception also in your back memory. Now come to this particular page. Now this particular page, in fact, I already explained that to you. Listen very carefully. Normally we have two residential status, that is resident and non-resident. Okay. However, for individual or an HUF, we also have a non-ordinarily resident status. Is that clear? So individual or an HUF only, one extra status is there. So individual or an HUF, you can have three status. But all other person, for example, a company can either be resident in India or a company can be non-resident in India. There is no middle status for a other category of the persons, example, company. Okay. Now, how do you calculate residential status? I already told to you that it by and large depends on your number of days stay in India for certain number of years or for the previous years. There is a methodology of doing the calculation. So if you say that individual is resident in India, so it is not just by oral these things, but you have to do some working. There is one separate chapter. That separate chapter we have to learn that how individual becomes resident or non-resident, okay, or not ordinarily resident. Okay. So I repeat, normally you have only two status. Listen very carefully. That means either you are resident or you are non-resident. Normally. Okay. So you say company is either it can be resident or it can be non-resident. There is no three status for company. But for individual or an HUF, only for individuals or an HUF, you can be either not ordinarily resident or a non-resident. How you have to calculate this, I will tell you in maybe in the next chapter. Okay, I will tell you that particular situation. Okay, so if you come to this particular definition, see now all the persons can have a residential status. How? That we have to calculate it, but not right now, after some time. Okay, so this individual or an HUF can either be resident or they can be resident and ordinarily resident, or that can be not ordinarily resident or non-resident. Either of three situations are possible. Okay, but for all the other category of persons, they can either be resident or they will be non-resident. They will have either of the two situations. Is that clear? One more thing that you got to remember it very carefully, and that is, see this not ordinarily resident and non-resident, these two residential status. Okay, by and large they are the same. That means tax calculation point of view. That means when I will teach you the working, that how you calculate the tax and all that, the working wise, they are almost the same. They are almost the same. Okay, there hardly any difference. However, there is one major exception in between them. So in between these two status, there is one exception, and that is business controlled from India. Situation of business controlled from India. So if it is controlled inside India, then not ordinarily resident person will become taxable. Is that clear? And if it is controlled from India, non-resident person is not taxable. That is the difference. In detail, also I will show you with the help of the working after some time. Okay. Now friends, come to this particular page, and on this particular page, I will explain that to you some tax rates, that what are the rates of taxes and how the tax liability gets calculated. So you please copy down those particular tax rate. That's the reason I've kept this particular page little bit blank, so that you can copy down by yourself. Okay, so the tax rates, how tax liability get calculated, the rough mechanism, that I will explain it to you in just some time to go, that you better copy down on this particular page. Now friends, let me introduce to you the rates of taxes, that how the tax liability will get calculated. I will give you some examples also of doing the calculation. Okay. Now tax rates, first of all friends, you remember that for individual it is a different tax rates, for HUF it is a different tax rates, for company it is a different tax rates. So for different category of persons, the tax rates and the tax calculation provisions are all different. Okay, but in a nutshell, it is a tax on income. Listen very carefully. It is a tax on income. So you will have to have income multiplied by the tax rates and get the amount of the tax liability. Okay, so this is a broad formula, that if you want to calculate the tax liability, how you will calculate? You should know the income and you should know the rate. Once you know the income and the rate, then you will be able to calculate the tax of that particular person very, very precisely. Okay. Now, let me first of all open this particular what should I say, the tax rates. This is my notes basically, but as I already told you friends that you better copy down. I'll tell you what to copy down, but you copy down on this particular page that this is your tax rates. Okay. Now, these tax rates, listen very carefully. Right now, I will lay more emphasis on individual or HUF. Okay, so this is individual and HUF. Okay, so this tax liability calculation is for individual and HUF. Okay, now friends, this particular tax liability is to be calculated in a progressive manner. Okay, progressive manner. Let me tell you first of all. Okay, supposing if you have 10 lakhs rupees as your income, okay, then up to rupees 5 lakhs, this is your tax rate. Up to 1 second, this is jumping. 1 second. Okay. Up to rupees 5 lakhs, your tax rate is how much? 5%. Okay, your tax rate is 5%. Up to rupees 5 lakhs. Okay. However, you get some basic exemption up to a limit. That means you can say that up to 2.5 lakhs of rupees, logically your tax rate is nil. But if you have any income above 2.5 lakhs of rupees, then your tax rate is 5%. Okay. So supposing if you say that your income is 3 lakhs, so say 2,50,000, you will say nil percentage. Above means only 50,000 you have, so it will be 5%. This is how you will have to calculate the tax liability. Okay. Now this particular basic exemption, friends, will also vary. This will keep on changing. Okay, so that also you better remember. Okay. If you are a resident senior citizen, that means age 60 and above, then the basic exemption is 3 lakhs. If your age is 80 and above, that means very senior citizen, then the basic exemption is 5 lakhs. Okay. So up to first 5 lakhs of rupees, your tax rate is 5%, subject to basic exemption, depending upon whether you are a resident senior citizen, that is 60 years and above, or you are a very senior citizen, 80 years and above. Then 5 lakhs to 10 lakh rupees of income, your rate is 20%. Above 10 lakhs, it is 30%. Okay. So these tax rate 5%, 20%, 30%, and this basic exemption, you can update this on this particular page here. Okay. On this particular page, you can update your tax rates. Okay. So you can just copy down here. You can say individual like this and the slab. Okay. Like this, you can just copy it down. Okay. Now, once you have calculated this particular tax liability, then there is one rebate which is provided by the law. We call it as a rebate under section 87A. We call it as a tax rebate. But this tax rebate is available only to the resident in India and only to the individual. Okay. So for the HUF, you do not get the benefit of this particular rebate. Okay. This is only for the resident and individual. If your total income, now you already know what a total income means. Total income is basically your gross total income minus the deductions. This is basically, some people also call it as a net income. I mean, just for the sake of understanding. If your total income is less than or equal to 5 lakhs, then maximum rebate is 12,500 rupees. Okay. So basically the rebate is 100% of such income tax or 12,500 rupees, whichever is less. This is the amount of the rebate. So for people with small category of income, that means income which does not exceed 5 lakh of rupees. Okay, they get a rebate. Now, on the income tax, there is a surcharge. Okay, so on the income tax, you have to calculate surcharge. Okay, and if your income is more than 50 lakhs, then it is 10% surcharge. If your income is more than 1 crore but less than 2 crore, then it is 15%, 25%, 37%, depending upon this particular income category. Okay, so copy down this particular surcharge slab. We call it as a slabs of surcharge. Okay, but this surcharge is to be calculated on tax. Okay, and on top of that there is a cess. Okay, this cess is 4%. But this cess is calculated on tax plus the surcharge. Okay. So on the tax amount plus the surcharge, you will be calculating the amount of the cess in this particular situation. Okay. So this is a method in which your tax liability will get calculated. So this is something which you will copy it down. So this is individual, HUF. This is what you got to copy. You can copy down these rates. The rebate you can just note down 5 lakhs limit, resident individual 12,500. That's all. This surcharge slabs you have to copy very properly. Okay, and cess. Okay, so this is basically your tax structure. So once you know that what is the amount of the income, then give the basic exemption and get the amount of the tax liability figures. Okay. Now friends, I think I have some examples on this particular front. Let me give you that particular examples. Okay, illustration I have. You also copy down this particular illustration very properly and just understand it is a pure calculator work. Now if you have understood this, okay. See, let me select the ink. Okay, fine. Example number 1. Okay, you copy down this particular example also. See, I am taking this example, Mr. X, and the age is 41 years. Why I am taking this example and knowing that 41 years? Because he is not a senior citizen. Because that age, no, basic exemption changes. See this. Okay, here. Basic exemption is for different category of person. A different whether senior citizen or not, something like that. Okay, so in my example, this senior citizen is not there. So my basic exemption will become 2.5 lakhs. Have you understood that? Okay. So up to rupees 5 lakhs, 5% tax rate. Okay, subject to basic exemption of 2.5 lakhs. So my status is I am writing resident and ordinary resident because this is only example. Now supposing my income is how much? 3,62,000. From that I am assuming that deduction is some X amount. I assume 10,000 because this is pure calculator work. You copy down this particular example. So my total income is 3,52,000. Okay. So 2,50,000 is my basic exemption. And whatever is the amount which is above that, up to rupees 5 lakhs, 5% is my tax rate. I will multiply that. Okay. Now, after the tax calculation, the next step is to give rebate, if any, if you are eligible for. My total income is how much? 3,52,000 and some odd figure. I am a resident person. I am an individual. See, Mr. X is an individual. So all the condition of this particular rebate is satisfied. See, this particular is an individual. He is resident. Income is less than or equal to 5 lakh of rupees. Maximum amount of the rebate is 12,500. Or technically, if you want to say, it is 100% of such tax or 12,500, whichever is less. So the entire income tax is the amount of the rebate subject to maximum of 12,500 rupees. So this is the rebate. This is only for individuals. Okay. So that is the example which I have already given. So my income is how much? 3,52,000. Okay. So this is a rebate. Maximum rebate will be 12,500. So I am giving full rebate. So my net tax liability is nil. Okay, copy down this particular example, the method of doing the calculation. Now, one thing you will observe very naturally that if your income is more, naturally the tax liability is going to increase. So this is also called as a progressive taxation. More income, more tax. So more rich you are, more taxes you have to contribute to the government. Okay. This is one example. Please copy it down. Okay. Example number 1. Okay. Now example number 2. Example number 2 is again Mr. X, age 41. That means he is not a senior citizen, resident person. Amount is 15 lakhs is the income. Okay. And some odd figure. Some deductions. So your gross income and your net income. So this is a format of computation. You please copy down this particular example, please. Okay. So now your net income is how much? 15 lakhs and odd figure. So 2,50,000 is the basic exemption. Okay. So up to rupees 5 lakhs. That means this total is 5 lakhs. This is up to 5 lakhs. It is 5%. Okay. See this tax liability calculation. Okay. See, up to rupees 5 lakhs, it is 5%. Up to rupees 5 lakhs, it is 5%. Subject to basic exemption. So in my case, the basic exemption was 2.5 lakhs. So up to rupees 5 lakhs, it is 5%. Then 5 to 10 lakhs of rupees, it is 20%. And above it is 30%. So I have to follow this particular slabs of doing the calculation. Okay. So this is my up to 5 lakhs. Now from 5 lakhs to 10 lakhs, that is another 5 lakhs. Okay. So that is 20%. And above is whatever is above 10 lakhs to 15 lakhs, 13,000. That means 5 lakhs, 13,000. Okay. This is 30%, which I will multiply. Now in the given case, 87A rebate will not be available because income is more. Because your net income is how much? 15 lakh, 13,000. But see what is the limit which is given to you for the rebate. Only if the income should be less than or equal to 5 lakhs. So if your income is more, then you are not going to get any rebates. So there is no rebate if your income is more. Okay. So that's the reason in the given situation, there is no rebate given to you. Okay. Surcharge is not applicable because surcharge, see the slab of the surcharge. See the slab of the surcharge. The slab first 10% comes only if the total income is more than 50 lakhs. Only if the total income is more than 50 lakhs. But in our case, it is how much? Some 15 lakhs rupees only it is there. Let me check. See, this is only 15 lakhs. My total income is roughly about some 15 lakhs and odd figure. That is the reason there is no surcharge. Okay, but cess will be applicable. Cess is up because cess is a flat thing, 4%. Okay, but use your calculator. It is a 4% on the entire amount of tax. So just use your calculator. Okay, so it is a 4% on this figure. Use your calculator. 12,500 plus 1 lakh plus 1,53,900. This is your tax figure. So on tax, you will have cess of 4%. You will multiply, you will get this 10,000 and odd figure. And this is your total tax liability. Okay. Please copy down this particular example very precisely. All figures are illustrative, friends, for your better understanding. One more example which I want to give it to you. Okay. And that example again, age 41 years. That means not a senior citizen. Okay. Now your income is how much? 78 lakhs. I'm assuming some deductions. So you have a gross total income minus deductions. So you have a net income of some 77 lakhs and some odd figure. Okay. So now this is all pure calculator work, friends. You can always easily do it by yourself. But anyway, this is initial introduction. So I'm explaining everything to you. And please copy down all these examples which I'm giving it. This is a third example. Okay. See, basic exemption. Then up to rupees 5 lakhs, that means this total is 5 lakhs, 2.5 plus 2.5. This is up to rupees 5 lakhs. Okay. So up to rupees 5 lakhs subject to basic exemption. So basic exemption logically I write as 0%. No need to write, but anyway. Okay. And this is 5%. Then 5 lakhs to 10 lakhs is above 5 lakhs rupees, that is 20%, and whatever is above that, okay, that is 30%. Okay. So if you take this entire total, this is going to be 77 lakhs 88,000. This entire total is going to be 77 lakhs 80,000. Okay. Now 87A rebate you will not get because the income is small, because that limit is, see, 87A rebate is how much the limit for that? It is 5 lakhs rupees limit. No. So in the given example, my income is 77 lakhs. So you are not eligible for this particular rebate. Okay. Now see the surcharge. Because now in this example, the surcharge will be applicable. Some 77 lakhs rupees income is there, no? So, surcharge will be in this category, see, 50 lakhs to 1 crore. So this will be the surcharge category in the given example. Because my income is some 77 lakhs and some odd figure. Okay. So my surcharge will be 10%. And this surcharge of 10%, friends, will be applicable on entire amount of tax. Surcharge is on the tax. That is after rebate. Okay. But in the given question, there is no rebate. So use the calculator and thereafter you copy, check all the calculation very properly. Okay. So I will show you that particular calculation. Okay. See, this is 10% surcharge. Surcharge category is this category. Okay. But this will be 10% of what? This will be the 10% of the entire tax after rebate, if any. In the given question, there is no rebate. So forget it. Okay. So on the entire this thing, you multiply 10%, you will get this 2,14,980. Okay. This is how surcharge is calculated. And cess. Cess will be calculated on the entire amount including surcharge. Okay. So this is entire figure. Of that you will multiply with 4% and you will get the amount of the cess. Use your calculator quickly and check out these particular numbers. I repeat friends, and let me tell you friends, because it is initial detail explanation, I am repeating and all that. Once you will get the practice of few more questions, you'll get a hack of this, baby. You'll really get a hack of this. Okay. So you don't have to worry about it. I repeat. See, on the entire amount of tax after rebate, but in the given question there is no rebate, you will multiply with the surcharge. Okay. And the entire amount including surcharge, you will multiply with cess percentage and get the amount of the cess. Okay. Last time I repeat. Okay. This will be 10% of 12,500 plus 1 lakh plus 20 lakhs 36,400. Of that 10% you will multiply, you will get this 2,14,980 is a surcharge. Okay. And your cess will be calculated on 12,500 plus 1 lakh plus 20 lakhs 36,400. Okay. Plus the amount of the surcharge 214,890. Okay. These you will multiply with cess percentage and get the amount of the cess, and then you will get the total tax liability. Okay. Check out, use your calculator very quickly. Okay. And copy down all the 3 examples. Okay. Keep this particular basic example with you very precisely for the calculation. Okay. So just check out the numbers and copy it down very quickly.